Thanks for joining me again, and today we are going to be brewing a 2010 Mingku Sheng pu-erh tea. It's a nice solid piece, so this should be fun. This is about an 8-gram chunk here, which 8 grams is a pretty decently sized amount. And the reason why is because this gaiwan here is about 160 milliliters. It's a decent sized gaiwan too, so we're going to be drinking a lot of tea today. All right. So to get started out, basically, just to give everyone a layout of what the hell you're looking at here. This is a tea tray. This slab of wood here. Tea trays come in a variety of sizes, a variety of shapes and designs. But basically, they all have one function, and that is to have a place to set your teaware on, a place to catch water, and a place that is mobile that you can take with you or take somewhere this is a little less mobile, but it's definitely still movable. I move it around. Basically, a lot of tea trays are made of bamboo because it's water resistance and ability to not warp when under certain temperatures. But basically, you can find a lot of tea trays. Hell, Amazon or any of the known teaware or tea stores. But moving on, from there, of course, we have our cups right here, which one of the questions I often get is why are and this method of brewing tea is called Gong Fu or Kung Fu, and one of the questions that I always get is why are the cups so small? Well, the cups are small because the servings of tea are small, and the servings of tea are small because Gong Fu is more so about shots of tea, or smaller heated servings of tea. That way you sort of taste the tea through the progression of the tea service, through the different temperatures and at different stages of being brewed. So you don't drink large cups of tea, you drink small cups of tea. That way you don't have to drink a gallon of tea. Although with some teas that is also possible. Anywho, these guys are tea pets. I have a blowfish and a cat tea pet here, and basically these get some. We feed them some tea. They're here to sort of add a little bit of character and liveliness to the board, to the tray, and they have a. They get the rinse, the cold or the hot rinse, depending on what you do, and you can also feed them tea throughout as you're drinking. Give them a little taste. Treat them well, and as you feed them tea, they'll develop a little patina, and they'll sort of age with everything else here. Alrighty, moving on. This is a tea serving vessel right here. A lot of times you'll see one. They're made out of bamboo or whatever. I got just one made out of ceramic here. And the tea that we're having today, like I said, it's a solid piece of Sheng pu-erh, which this comes from a pressed bing of Sheng, and that we just break off a piece. So this is aged, so this is about 15 years old or so. And then we have our filter here. As when we pour, this is the gaiwan right here. We pour from the gaiwan into the fairness cup or the fair cup right here, and when we pour it, the tea will be in there, and there isn't any way, or there isn't anything filtering it when we pour it in. So we put this on top, and when we pour the tea, we pour it through the filter, and that gets all the loose material. That way we don't end up drinking it. And then, of course, you heard me call this the fairness cup. This is the fairness cup. This one's a little bit of a special one. It has a side handle and some stuff that's meaningful to me. It has a lot of fairness cups are more like this guy right here, which is a very nice vessel, and you handle it by the edges because normally it's very warm, and you use it to pour the tea into the individual serving cups and make sure that you fairly serve them. And then, of course, here we have the gaiwan. Gaiwan is, of course, the traditional classic instrument used for serving tea, Chinese tea, and it was invented, oh good lord, I think over 1,000 years ago. It works by just moving the lid over and creating an opening to pour the tea through. Once you pour water in, and you pour it, of course, through your filter here. Alrighty. So first, we'll grab the tea and we'll pop it right into the gaiwan. You might say, hey, why don't you just toss it in there. And really, the classic way of doing a Gong Fu ceremony, quote unquote, is to be mindful about it, to be concentrated on the thing that you're doing and nothing else, if possible. Of course, I do Gong Fu every day, and there are many times when I am not concentrated on it. I'm concentrated on work, or I'm concentrated on something else, and I'm just doing this as I go through. But for the purposes of the video, when I can and where possible, I try to do it mindfully, because it's sort of a relaxation and a meditation technique. So yeah, we'll pour that in there, and then because tea is what it is, it often gets dusty or gets tea dust all over it in the course of being stored. And this is, of course, a 15-year-old aged tea, which was wrapped for most of its life. But still, usually for this kind of tea, I'll do a cold rinse, which just comes with fresh, clean, cold water. When you're pouring the water in, try to hit the edges of the gaiwan and not pour it directly in the middle. You don't want to pour it directly on the tea either. And then, because this is just a rinse, we don't care about time. We're just going to open it up, create a little opening there, making sure that this edge is never beyond the edge of the gaiwan. Make sure the edge of your lid is not beyond the edge of the gaiwan. Grab it, and then basically you'll be putting a finger on top, or sometimes a knuckle, and wherever, and then you'll grab it by the edges here, so the very edges of the gaiwan, and wherever your finger is pointing, so it's pointing that way, wherever your finger is pointing is basically where you're going to be pouring. So that's a little bit too close to that finger, so I got to make sure in my technique to point my finger in the right direction. So if I'm going to do it this way, then wherever my finger is pointing is where I'm going to be pouring. So something just to keep in mind as you're pouring. If you don't point your finger the right way, you'll be pouring the hot water, the often boiling hot water, over your fingers, and that's unpleasant. All right, so that was just a cold rinse. The cold rinse I will usually pour directly into the water, the wastewater I have over here on the side. So we'll pour that out. And now we're ready for a hot rinse. So for pu-erhs and tightly packed teas like this one, a hot rinse is a lot of times necessary just to get the tea soup oozing, just to get the tea soup flowing from the tea, and to get to start the process of the tea breaking up and becoming individual leaves and letting you and releasing its soup basically. So a hot rinse is necessary. I'm gonna go grab my water for this pu-erh tea. They say use boiling water. I almost never use boiling water because I'm a little contrarian that way, I guess. I will use 208 degree or 205 degree water. All right, the water is heated up, so here we go. I'll grab it. All right. Now for water heating, I use a stainless steel kettle here with a gooseneck spout because I like the control that the gooseneck spout gives me. Make sure that it's temperature controlled because you'll need water at different temperature settings. But basically, you want to get ones that have that allow you to modify the temperature by 1 degree variance. So some only allow you to do it by 5 or 10 degree variance. You'll want to do it by 1 degree increments. Sorry, not variance, increments. Alrighty, so we're going to get started here. So the first thing, one of the most important things about Gong Fu is you always want your teaware to be hot. You always want your teaware to be hot, otherwise your teaware steals the heat from your tea. And drinking cold tea is not the purpose and generally is not a great way of doing Gong Fu for your guests. If you prefer to do it for yourself, hey, you rock you. But the more general way is to keep it hot. So first we'll want to pour water into our fairness cup. This one being glass heats up practically instantly. I will keep it in for a little bit. For other fairness cups that are ceramic or heavy ceramic or other types of material, you may need to keep it in for 20 or 30 seconds to give the vessel time to absorb the heat. So we're going to do a hot rinse here, which means as soon as I pour it in, I'm going to want to pour it out. So knowing that, I'm going to pre-stage some things. We will pour a fairness cup into our serving cup or cups here. The traditional setup for serving cups is a triangular formation with 1 cup pointed towards yourself and 2 cups pointed towards your guests. Right now, since it's just me and for presentation purposes, I have 1. All right. Now, like I said, we're going to want to do a hot rinse, so pouring around the edges again, not directly in the middle. There's a few different techniques to do it. You'll see me using one or two different ones here. I put the top on, I open it up a little bit, making sure not to go beyond that edge. I grab it, making sure I know where I'm pointing, and I pour. Every gaiwan's a little different, so the feel of the pour is a little different, so that's something that you'll be paying attention to as you do it. You want to take the top off, you want to take the filter out, and traditionally you will hand the gaiwan, dab the bottom on a towel to make sure your guests don't get hot water on their hands, and carefully hand it to your guests, indicating where they should hold it by the edges here, and let them smell, because a big part of the Chinese tea ceremony is the scents, the aromas. Scent and taste, if you didn't know, are very, very, very closely tied together. So a lot of times smelling something enough will enable you to taste new things, and tasting new things may enable you to smell new things. They work in a circular fashion. So, and I like to try to note what I smell here, which is honey and a little bit of roasted flavor, but not burnt, and definitely not roasted like an oolong. But a lot of sweetness, a lot of honey and sugar. It's a very great smell. All right, so we'll take tongs here, and we'll pour the hot water out of the cup. When you're doing this, you always want to pour water towards yourself and away from your guests. Same way when you're pouring tea, always pour away from your guests and towards yourself. So being that this is the hot rinse, I'm going to give a little bit to our tea pet friends here. Got our little blowfish buddy here who will blow bubbles if you feed him enough. Ah, there we go. Give enough to Kitty, and then I'll give some to the cup here too. You can kind of catch the color a little bit. It's a very light cream, almost a little bit yellow. So for a hot rinse, that's to be expected. I also like to have a little taste myself just to see what it's like. All right, and then we're ready for our first brew. So first brews of Shangs, I'll generally do 15-second brews. 15 seconds is a very quick brew. I'm going to try to do it all in one motion the correct way before I cheat the subsequent ways. So the correct way is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And that requires a lot of good timing, and for everything to go perfectly, which sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, it's a bit of an exercise. It's a bit of a it's what you're focused on doing. That, and it's funny, but I didn't have the teacup leveled on this guy. However, still did about a 15-second pour right there. Notice the color of the hot rinse. The hot rinse was pretty close to 15 seconds as well because of me talking and other nonsense. But so now this first rinse here, which I'm going to give a little bit to the tea pets too, because they've been good guys. So now this is the first brew right here, and it's a little bit darker. Cheers. Yeah, this is a fairness cup right here. Indeed, this is a fairness cup right here. So a fairness cup is what you pour your tea into after you're brewing it. So you can brew tea in a gaiwan like this, or in a teapot like this I was showing earlier. Doesn't matter, gaiwan or teapot, they serve the same purpose, to put your loose leaf tea in and pour your tea out sans tea leaves, and into the fairness cup. And the fairness cup is called that. That way, that way you use it to fairly serve all of your guests. You use it to proportion it out. Usually, traditionally, you would do it by color, meaning that you would figure out how much to serve each person by the color of the tea in each cup. That's how they do it without eyeballing the level, because sometimes the teaware, it's a little hard to see the color too, so it's a little interesting. But all right, so I'm going to get ready for the second steep here. First, I'm going to warm up my fairness cup. This hot tea is good tea. Such a good shine. All right, so we're warming up our fairness cup. I'm going to stick with, for the second steep, going to stick with another 15-second steep. Usually the first few steeps I'll do for 15 or 20 seconds, and then I'll go 5 seconds back, and that's how usually I'll go. Going to warm up our serving cups now. And here we go. The color's definitely gotten stronger as well. So I probably average on most of my tea, I would say on 90% of my tea sessions, I get between 7 and 10 brews. For aged pu-erh specifically, I'll get more. For black teas, I'll get less, maybe 6 or 7 or 8. Dancon oolongs, usually I'll get 9 or 10. White teas, I'll usually get 7 or 8. Aged white teas, I'll get in the double digits. So Gong Fu cups come in a wide variety of everything, shapes, sizes, whatever. So this is the one I'm using. It's 100 milliliters. I love using it because usually I get it covers one pour from almost any fairness cup I have. It's one complete pour, and it heats up really well and it holds heat really well. This is, if I remember correctly, this is Jian Shui, which is a type of pottery, Chinese pottery that it's made from. And this one specifically is from Waititi, from their website. Okay, we have ceramic cups. This one's about 60 milliliters. It's more like the standard, quote unquote, standard Gong Fu cup size. So it's a little bit smaller, but very cool. There's this one, which has a fun bottom on it, and is also roughly, I think this one's 70 milliliters, and this one goes with the set that I have. There is this one, which is very, I believe, Dai pottery style from China. This one is part of a Dai pottery set, the same set that this fairness cup comes from. We're there. Price range wise, you're talking, like I said, $5, $6, $7 for an individual cup. Sometimes $2 or $3 if you go for something that's really a really light ceramic, a really light porcelain. Sometimes they're a little bit cheaper. And then I think the most expensive one I have here are probably this guy right here, which is, funny enough, the thinnest. But this is all handmade. In fact, a lot of these are, but this is all handmade and hand glazed and everything. And I think this was $28, so roughly $30 for a single cup. So I got this with a set, so I think it came out to like $20 a cup. But if I were to buy it individually, it'd be probably around 30 or so. Of course, you can get very ornate. If you get super ornate, you can get ones that have gold in them and ones that have... You can get some pretty crazy cups, especially if you spend any good time in Hong Kong or Taiwan. You can find some pretty amazing teaware. And of course, you'll spend hundreds, thousands of dollars, like you could for any at any hobby or profession. But usually for everyday usage, yeah, you'll probably be able to find you should be able to find a good Gaiwan for 20 bucks or so. You should be, once again, new. You should be able to find a good set of teacups, honestly, for $30 to $50, and that's a set of 4 teacups for $30 to $50 is my expectation. You'll probably be able to find something cheaper. You shouldn't have to spend more than 50 bucks. You'll be able to find a good fairness cup for 10, 15, 20 bucks. These aren't hard to find. They're not expensive. And they come in a variety of different materials, glass, ceramic, all kinds of different stuff, so they're not hard to find. Tea filters, 10, 15 bucks. I think this leaf filter that I showed earlier was 6 bucks, I think. This works great in very specific circumstances. This works great for teas that have sediment, because the sediment stops the tea from going all the way out and falling off the edge of the leaf. And now we're going to brew another one. So I've been using this pour around the edge method for pouring into a Gaiwan here. You'll see different people using different methods. I'll show you a couple. That's one. So remember, all the way open, not past that edge. Remember where you're pointing. Grab it, pour. It's important to remove as much water as possible from your tea, because any water that remains continues to cook your tea. Once again, and after each brew, I like to hand the cup to the guest as well and let them smell, because different smells and different aromas emerge from the tea through each brew. So, and it's kind of cool to look at the leaves and see how they unfold and see how the colors change, and especially with like lightly oxidized teas like tea guanyin or a lot of Taiwanese oolongs, they get really pretty and they expand when they brew them. Alrighty, and then we pour our water out. The water I'm brewing this one specifically is I think 205. Yep. I haven't changed the temperature here. I might up it in later steeps. I think this is the fourth steep. So I'm getting great color out of this too. Look at that color. That's nice. Well, horses will drink 20 to 30 gallons a day if on like a summer day. Which horse too? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. Usually, like I said, heat. It's important to keep the tea super hot. So that's a really great question. So usually, after pouring the water in, it's important to have a water seal, which is water completely over the tea, and then a seal where the lid touches the Gaiwan. And one good way to have that water seal is by pouring a little bit of water over the Gaiwan, which also concurrently acts to heat up the lid and further keep the tea at a good temperature. So there's a couple of reasons why you do it that way. You'll notice with a lot of pu-erh teas, if they're packed right, meaning if they're done right in the Bing, if they're pressed right and they choose the right material, you'll find some stems. A lot of times people think stems are a sign of a lower quality tea. In some cases it might be, but in many cases, especially with pu-erh teas, it's actually a sign of of more thoughtful tea. The reason why is because in pu-erhs, the aging comes in some part from oxidation. And in order to have oxidation, the air has to be able to reach the tea. Tea that's packed tightly, the stems serve as a conduit for oxygen into the tea Bing to oxidize the tea that's deeper and in the center of the Bing that is more tightly packed. So it's good to actually have a good ratio of stems your bings, in your pressed pu-erhs and in your pressed teas, because the stems will allow oxidation and aging to occur, which is generally a good thing, or generally the intention of packing a tea that way. All right, before we have a brew, one more thing I want to go over here really quick. Tea tools. You'll find these a bunch of different places, including Amazon and everything. You really only need three things. Really, you only need, for Gong Fu, a pair of tongs, something to grab your teacups with and pour them, because they're filled with hot water, and if you do it with your hands, you'll get burnt. They're also useful in a variety of other ways. Tongs are useful. Probably I'd say number one. Two, if you're dealing with pu-erhs, especially packed pu-erhs or tight pu-erhs, you need a way to break them apart. A pu-erh knife. You don't have to get a specialty pu-erh knife. Any knife will do. It helps if it isn't super sharp, because you'll find yourself slipping a lot of times, and you don't want to do it with a super sharp knife. But generally, just something to break apart a pu-erh with. A little tip too, when you break apart a pu-erh, a bing, or anything, you'll generally want to start actually from, you'll flip it over to the indented side and start it from the inside of the indented side. That's the easiest place generally to get a good flake off. And the third thing, the third tool that you'll probably need, honestly, is a scoop of some time to get some sort to get your tea out with. You can use a spoon. I have a dedicated spoon. Whatever. I like using a scoop as well, especially for oolongs, and some sort of vessel to get your tea with. So I'd say those are really the only three tools you need. I use a brush every once in a while when cleaning the tea tray. This guy I use to push the tea into the vessel, but you could also use your scoop or something else with that. Traditionally, it's something stick-like that's used, so maybe if you want to get one of these, it's not like they're that expensive. But you should be able to find a set with 3, 4, or 5 tools, and even the thing to put them in, honestly, for like 15, 20 bucks or less. They aren't crazy. All right, just heating up the fairness cup again. Oh, and you'll find these guys too. You'll find these guys too, and these are generally used to serve the teacups to your guests. When you don't want to pick them up. In a Chinese tea ceremony, generally, as soon as you pour the tea, the guest is welcome to take it from the tray. So there are different variations of how to serve the tea to a guest. This is for one of those variations, but it's not really necessary. So just FYI. I'm sorry, Russ, were you saying something? Yeah, yeah. There's yeah. I'll show after I'm done brewing here. I'll actually show you the other teacups I have too, and give you the really quick spiel on that guy. Stop it doing that. Young pu-erhs generally have a kind of vegetative, just to be general about it, smell and flavor to them. And I like this aged one because it still has a little bit of that, but it's very mellow and combined with sort of a sweetness and just a nice kind of, how do I describe it even? Maybe a little mushroomy or earthy and kind of broth. So it's very pleasant. Now I'm just looking for the tongs. Okay. So yeah. Alrighty, 6th brew, I think. However, to your question, yeah, the white cup definitely makes the tea look awesome. If I put the tea in one of these guys, it's not going to look nearly as yellow or beautiful or golden. And if I put the tea in a clashing color cup, like green, it's going to look funky. It's going to look yellow-green, you know? It's almost going to look lime green. So white cups I love because they show the true color. And white cups are great for people to use as well because you can tell when your tea's starting to get weak and when you might want to up the temperature or the brew time or modify one of the other variables. So for brewing, especially, I don't want to say for beginners because I don't want to crimp someone's style and say you must use a white cup. But for people getting into it, white cups are generally a good thing to start with because they help you know easier when to modify one of your variables that you're using.